A 19-year-old kid walks out onto a balcony overlooking the Thames. He comes from a stable, entirely normal home in the suburbs, but this apartment is worth $5 million. He doesn't own it, he doesn't rent it. By the end of the night, he falls to his death. That kid was Zach Bretler. In the months leading up to that fall, Zach had carefully constructed an entirely fictional life. He told people he was the son of a Russian oligarch. He wore the right clothes, used the right aliases, and infiltrated elite criminal circles, while his parents sat a few miles away, completely unaware. Journalist Patrick Radden Keefe investigated Zach's life and death. Keefe doesn't usually write whodunits. He studies systems. He looks at how massive concentrations of money, power, and opaque institutions slowly corrode ordinary human lives. Keefe's reporting frames the tragedy as a product of systemic failures. It focuses on dismantling the specific illusions, financial, social, and digital, that allowed Zach's fatal mirage to exist in one of the most monitored cities on Earth. Zach's actual reality was perfectly fine. His father had a conventional job in finance. They lived in a nice house. His family drove a Mazda. By any statistical measure, he had everything he needed. But he wanted a Bugatti Veyron. He looked at his father's comfortable middle-class stability and decided it was inadequate. He needed to be bigger. This points to a defining modern anxiety, the identity gap. For a generation raised entirely online, the distance between the modest reality of daily life and the hyper-curated performance of wealth generates immense psychological pressure. The aesthetic of success begins to feel more urgent than actual reality. Zach didn't invent hustle culture or the mandate to fake it till you make it. He simply took it to a terminal extreme. He adopted his billionaire heir persona, not for direct financial theft, but because the performance of wealth had become more real to him than his own life. The psychological desperation to perform wealth is a common outcome of our digital landscape. It is only the fatal conclusion of Zach's performance that makes his story the anomaly. But a psychological desire doesn't explain the logistics. How has a teenager actually manifest a digital lie into a physical reality, rubbing shoulders with real wealth and real danger? He did it because of where he lived. London is a financial machine built to attract, camouflage, and legitimize global capital. It is a city that has spent decades positioning itself as a premier destination for money that doesn't want to be tracked. Take the $5 million apartment where Zach spent his final hours. On paper, it was owned by a Saudi princess. In reality, it was occupied by an established, feared local gangster. This map illustrates London's role as an active architect of this system. It tracks capital from post-Soviet states funneling directly into the UK. The city built the infrastructure required to receive this laundered capital and pour it into the real estate market. Global corruption operates openly in elite neighborhoods. It stays in the buildings with the best views, wears expensive suits, and hosts charity galas. London projects a historic, trusted facade to the world, but behind that brick and stone tradition is a modern, untraceable luxury property market where true ownership is buried beneath layers of shell companies. When an entire city's economy normalizes imported, unquestioned wealth, it creates the ultimate camouflage. An imposter doesn't stand out. They fit right in. Zach's desperate performance intersected with a city engineered to legitimize fake wealth. The environment was perfectly suited to help him disappear into his own lie. The city's high-end institutions were perfectly willing to indulge a kid pretending to be an oligarch's son. They accommodated his fantasy right up until the exact second he became a liability. To understand the deepest tragedy of this story, we have to scale back down to the family home. Zach's parents were loving, attentive, and fully present, yet they had absolutely no idea their son was living a dangerous double life. The smartphone creates a hidden, parallel existence. For Zach, it offered direct access to criminal circles that were physically and socially invisible to his family, even while sitting across from them at the dinner table. Because of that digital barrier, Zach's private life escalated with terrifying speed. He wasn't texting peers, he was forming real-world associations with hardened criminals, adopting multiple aliases, and navigating high-stakes threats in complete silence. After his death, his parents had to piece together his final months. They became investigators, forced to retroactively uncover a child they thought they knew. The investigators found a stranger who happened to share the Brettlers' address. The depth and speed of Zach's digital world allowed him to inhabit a completely different reality than the one his parents occupied. Keefe's reporting draws a direct line between these distinct forces. A single tragedy is born when the structural failures of high finance, the psychology of status anxiety, and the blind spots of modern institutions all overlap. The case lacks a neat legal resolution. Scotland Yard's handling of the investigation leaves massive, frustrating gaps. Nobody has been charged. The story ends with grief rather than a verdict. Beyond the typical debates about screen time, Zach's story shows how social media rewrites a teenager's baseline expectations for their own identity, constantly showing them what enough isn't. Keefe's work highlights a corruption that isn't happening at the fringes. It suggests looking at the glamour projected by global cities with skepticism, questioning the stories that wealth tells about itself. A beat of silence before speaking. Zach Brettler fell to his death, but the machinery that built his illusion is still running. The chilling question is, how many variations of his story are silently playing out right now in the affluent cities we think we understand?